Hit it in top gear and see what it does. Oh yeah, it cuts like an arrow. Well, I suppose hell hath no fury. It's got 3 miles on it. I have put those 3 miles on it. Now, brand new, these come with anti-lock brakes, all of them, which is awesome. I'm going to preface everything I am about to say by saying I have owned 2 VTX 1300s and a VTX 1800 and have been in love with those 3 motorcycles. So, me riding the Fury was a natural progression. It was going to happen. Let me start by saying also, before you think I'm being hypercritical, because I'm not, that the VTX 1300 motors are stalwart. They are reliable and dependable as the day is long. My 2 carbureted 1300s, riding in the winter, 20 degrees outside, once you let them warm up, they were wonderful. To have fuel injected this motor finally was a brilliant move on Honda's part. What I want to discuss is what this bike is and what this bike isn't. If you have never ridden a VTX 1300, and if you have never ridden a VTX 1800, and I love my VTX 1800, it's 100 horsepower. If you've never owned those bikes, and you just jump on this, you will love this. You will say, this thing's really cool. Yeah, it's super stable. If you never owned any of those bikes, you will think that this is wonderful. You're going to love this. You're going to say it's beautiful. It's got Honda reliability. The horsepower is not crazy, but it's enough. And it is a head turner, you know. People will look at you when you own this. People will stare at you. 44-ish, 45-ish miles per gallon you'll get out of this tank. You know, you're going to squander that pretty quickly. It's only 3.5 gallons, so you can't be on it too long before you're going to be looking for a gas station again, which I don't get, and here's why. The Honda Interstate and the Honda State Line had a 4.5 gallon tank, had a big fat 130 on the front, and looked pretty much the same as this. I just don't understand why you wouldn't just give it that extra, let it have that extra gallon of gas. The other thing I'm going to say is this is a Honda Fury. Now on a Honda Fury, you expect fury out of the motor. The only thing I could say that maybe they should have considered was putting the 1800 in this and keeping the State Line and the Interstate, putting the 1300 in that. So as it stands alone, it's a brilliant bike. But when you compare it to what the motor came from and what it could have been, and the motors they've had before and what they could have put in this, it doesn't become the Honda Fury. It becomes the Honda Slightly Irritated. Because a 1300 motor is quick, but it's not furious. The 1800 motor, that's furious. It would seem to me in 2008, 2009, when they discontinued the VTX line and they came out with this, you would think that they would have said, you know what? When we make the Fury, what's the most furious V-twin we have? Oh, I know. The 1800. It's reliable. It's 100 horsepower. It's stupid quick. And it's loud when you put the Cobra pipes on it. Let's give them that one. Someone must have went, nah, give them the 1300. It's cheaper. We always sold more 1300s anyway. This is a beautiful showpiece. It's a showpiece. The riding position is just like my Victory Hammer. It's raked out. That is 4 inches longer than my Goldwing. Let's get back on the highway and do a run. And we'll give it the beans. We'll hammer it and see what it does. I'm pretty sure the 0 to 60 on this, I want to say is, I think it was 6.5 seconds. I think it was something like that. In Don Quixote, Cervantes' point was, we should stop seeing life as it is and start seeing life as it should be. I can't stop seeing this bike as it should be. It still handles great. I mean, it's not bad even with the thin front tire, but if I was taking a long trip, you do want that wider front tread patch. That's just me. Give it the beans. Yeah, it's about right. It's not slow. It's not slow, okay? But it's not VTX 1800, Victory Hammer, fast. I'm not expecting ZX14 speed out of it, but a Fury should be furious. Maybe they should call it the Honda Slightly Miffed. So when you know how good that 1300cc motor is, and you know they just put it in this chassis that's not really designed for long distance touring, you wonder why. And then you realize Honda has more brilliantly discarded choices. They are like what it must have been for Tom Brady at the prom. Which one? And so they just discard some of these things. I've got a discarded one right now, the VFR 1200X Cross Tour. Made that for a couple years. It was genius. Then, let's discard it and move on. That is how brilliant the company is. That's how big the company is. They can take this motor and say, let's just stream it down to this one model and move on. Even though that is a brilliant motor. That should be in a touring cruiser right now. One with a fat front tire. One with at least 4.5 gallons in the tank. Hit it in top gear and see what it does. Oh yeah, it cuts like an arrow. I kind of like the Honda slightly miffed. It's pretty. The thin front tire does help you dive into the corners a little bit. Helps you corner. Helps guide that 200 millimeter rear tire. But I still would have made the front tire a little fatter. My Thunderbird 1600 has a 200 on the back. My Victory Hammer has a 240 on the back. That is sweet. And I have made reviews of the VCX 1300s. You can check that out on TG MotoRider on my YouTube channel. I've made reviews of the VTX 1800 I've owned. So if you have knowledge of those bikes and then you ride this, you're going to see what this could have been. And you're going to be like, they should have put the 1800 on it. It's still a great bike to ride. I'm digging it. 11 grand brand new. You got a beautiful showpiece. It's reliable. It's never going to leave you stranded, man. It's a Honda. Fuel injected. They fuel injected that 1300 motor I've come to know and love so much, which I do. And I don't want to give you the wrong impression. The 1300 is not a slouch. It is not a slouch. It's just that when you hear the name Fury, yes, you expect 100 horsepower. So you take a chopper, you make a sort of a cardboard cutout, you put a very reliable motor in it that's got some pretty good bones to it, and then you mass produce it. The thing is about choppers, they're typically more personal than that. But this is a chopper that at least performs. Most choppers, cornering's questionable sometimes, and this sort of takes a lot of that out. This gearbox clicks into place so beautifully, so easily. This is so easy to ride. And I know this is over 600 pounds, but to be honest with you, you don't feel it. It carries this weight low. It's typical brilliant Honda engineering. Carries the weight low on the bike. Easy to ride. The layman person on the street will look at you on this and go, wow, dude, gorgeous bike. Honda's giving you a chopper that can perform. They're trying to give you that chopper feel, but it's a performance chopper. You can corner with it. And it's stable. It's easy to boss around, and it's got a very reliable motor that happens to deliver sensible torque. I just don't know if they should have called it the Fury, because you don't call something a Fury unless it's furious. And this bike's not furious. This bike's maybe angry. Yeah, it's angry. It's not furious. So we're going to see how easy it is to just slow maneuver this thing, even with the big fat rake on it. Let's see. Oh yeah. You know what's so funny? You know what's so funny about this? As long as this thing is, I'm having no issues. You know what? That is so typical Honda. I swear I'm looking for something to say bad about it. They make it so hard. Honda makes it so hard to be critical. I'm criticizing this bike for what it isn't, but I'm going to be completely honest. What it is great. It's great. It's a great Honda. I mean, I don't know if I would buy one for 11 grand, maybe a used one. If I could find one for 5 or 6, I might. I wouldn't pay 11 for a brand new one because the fuel range, and I'm on my bikes too much. And I'd be filling up all the time on this. Drive me crazy. I don't want to get stuck in my Don Quixote theory of not seeing life as it is, but as it should be. When you get stuck in that, sometimes you can't see things with fresh eyes. Maybe that's what I'm doing to this. Maybe that's wrong. But I see what this should be. Anyway, here endeth the lesson. Thank you, Mr. Connery. And that's my review of the Honda Slightly Irritated Fury. You know what? It's actually a really good bike if you look at it on its own. TG MotoRider, signing off.